The Steam Deck has been out for over a year and some months now, and I've had mine for a couple of weeks, and I have to say it's introduced me to a whole new world of handheld gaming that I never knew I was able to experience while on the go, like being able to play one of my favorite first-person shooters, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, or one of my favorite racing games, Forza Horizon 5, or even Cyberpunk. These are AAA titles that I love to play at home, and so being able to take them on the go with me was and still is pretty shocking to me. The Steam Deck sports a 7-inch IPS LCD screen with a resolution of 1280 by 800p, a 60Hz refresh rate, and a max brightness of 400 nits, and it covers about 70% of the RGB range, and while the colors could be better, it is a decent display. I could see what I was playing just fine, but it does have these large bezels around it, which does take up a good chunk of screen real estate. I'm sure they could have slapped a better screen on here if they wanted to, but to keep the Steam Deck at that $400 price point, they had to make some sacrifices somewhere. When I first picked up the Steam Deck and held it in my hands for the first time, I was surprised at how large this device is, but I got used to it pretty quickly. It's not anything too crazy, especially because it seems like a lot of care and effort went into the design of the Steam Deck. The ergonomic shape where your hands hold the device is very comfortable, and it just feels like a natural grip when I'm holding the Steam Deck, so if I do have a long play session, I can play without any issue. It does weigh more than a Nintendo Switch OLED, coming in at about 669 grams, but honestly, the weight hasn't been a problem for me. When I'm gaming, I don't even notice it because I'm too focused on the game that I'm playing. This definitely feels like a quality device. There's a matte texture all throughout the body, which gives it a rugged feel. All the face buttons feel pretty good to press. They have a membrane-like feel when you press them down. Except for the bumper and back buttons, they have a tactile feel. And speaking of back buttons, there's 4 of them, and due to the ergonomic design of the Steam Deck, your hands naturally rest on them, so pressing them is pretty easy. The trackpads are a cool addition as well. They have a satisfying haptic feedback when your thumb is gliding over them. I'm used to the Xbox controller D-pad that sits under the left analog stick, so when I'm playing Call of Duty or something, my thumb will sometimes naturally move to the trackpad thinking it's a D-pad, and I press it and then it functions like a D-pad and I'm like, whoa, that's kind of weird. But it's pretty cool at the same time, so I definitely dig the trackpads. They also make it a bit easier to navigate desktop mode because I found it harder to move the cursor with the thumbstick, so I resorted to using the right trackpad instead. The triggers on here are nice. They're analog triggers and they feel very smooth when you press them down. They're definitely one of my favorite things about the Steam Deck. It's as if they came straight off of a controller. That's how good they are. Now let's talk about the analog sticks. They are full-size sticks and they function well in terms of movement, but my only issue is that the material on the thumbstick cap themselves are pretty slippery. Instead of using rubber where your thumb will actually rest and move the thumbstick, they used a matte texture that isn't really grippy, and the weird thing is they put rubber around the thumbstick cap but not at the top, so I'm not really sure what they were thinking with this design. So to counter this, I bought these rubber concave thumb grips from JSOX that do a much better job with grip, and it makes me feel more confident moving the sticks, especially while playing an FPS game where aiming matters. The speakers on the Steam Deck are actually really good. I could hear exactly what was going on in the games that I was playing, and I never really felt the need to plug in some headphones as long as I was in a relatively quiet area like my bedroom, but if you're playing in a louder environment, I would suggest making use of the headphone jack or using some Bluetooth headphones. The 64GB model was the one that I opted for because I thought it was the one with the best value, because honestly you can just put a micro SD card to expand the storage, and yeah, while it won't be as fast as the SSDs in the more expensive variants, it still gets the job done while saving you money. And if you're confident with opening up the Steam Deck, you can upgrade the storage to an SSD with more storage. I think Valve did a great job in giving the customer options as to how they want to go about storage on their Steam Deck. If they want to sacrifice storage to save money and use a micro SD card, they have that option, or if they don't feel like tinkering with the Steam Deck, they can just buy a variant that comes with an SSD already in it. SteamOS is easy to navigate. You can tell they tried to provide a console-like experience with it, and I think it does just that. Your games sit at the top of the main homepage, allowing for quick and easy access to your library, and pressing the Steam button opens up a side menu where you can access things like the library, the store, or the settings, and more. The quick settings button on the right side of the device is where you can check the battery life percentage and how long you have left before you need to recharge it. And just below that is where you can tweak your frame rate limit. The max frame rate is 60 FPS on here, by the way. You can also check notifications and see who's online on your friends list. Now, sometimes SteamOS can be janky. I had a few instances where it would lock up on me and I would have to use the touchscreen to continue navigating it. And I remember a few times where I was typing something on the keyboard, it would disappear and I'd have to tap the screen to bring it back. So it's not completely perfect, but I think it's still a decent UI. And since the Steam Deck is a computer in a handheld form, you can switch to desktop mode and use it like a regular computer. I don't have the dock currently, but if you get one, you can make it into what essentially is a true desktop experience while also being able to play your games on a bigger screen. It does run on Linux, so it was pretty interesting using it because I've never used a Linux distribution before. I've only used Windows and Mac, but it's pretty clean and minimalistic, and it has an easy layout for beginners like me to understand. But like I said earlier, navigating desktop mode was pretty challenging using the thumbsticks, so I definitely made use of the trackpads. Alright, now let's talk about the games. The games that you can play on here are pretty insane, and there's this nice section on the storefront called Great on Deck where you can find optimized games for the Steam Deck. They have this little green circle with a check mark in it, so finding games that are compatible with the Steam Deck are easy to find. You can play AAA games like Call of Duty, Forza Horizon 5, and Crysis, but the best part is being able to tweak the settings in these games like you would on a regular desktop to curate your own experience, which is something special. Playing Black Ops 2 at a mostly stable 40 FPS while on the go is something I could only dream of, or being able to play a massive game like Cyberpunk 2077 on the go at that golden 40 FPS mark is just insane. It just shows how far gaming technology has come. Now I will say it wasn't a flawless experience. I did experience frame dips and stuttering at times. There's a 40 watt battery in the Steam Deck, and on the official Steam Deck website it says it lasts anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. The battery life on the Steam Deck really depends on the type of game you're playing. Close to a full charge at max brightness when I'm playing Black Ops 2, which is an older game at a limit of 45 FPS, it runs around 10 to 11 watts, and I get around 3 hours and 30 minutes to 4 hours of projected battery life, which I think is pretty decent. But while playing Cyberpunk, which is a really demanding game, at a 40 FPS limit, the battery wattage jumps to around 23 to 25 watts, and I get around an hour and 40 something minutes of projected battery life. I'm sure if you're playing a small indie game, you could probably get much better battery performance, but like I said earlier, it really just depends on how demanding the game you're playing is. I will say if I forgot to charge my Steam Deck and I'm gonna head outside of the house, I do feel a little hesitant to take it with me because I'm not sure if the battery will last as long as I need it to. But at the same time, I haven't ran into an issue where it flat out died on me while I was playing it on the go, but nevertheless, I still do think it could use a battery upgrade because the whole point of using the Steam Deck is to play your games while you're on the go and not to be tethered to the charging cable. Overall, I've been enjoying the heck out of the Steam Deck. I was pleasantly surprised at what it can do, and I have to say, as of now, it is my favorite dedicated handheld gaming device because I can play a large selection of games that are catered to my liking. I can share my Steam library with my gaming PC, and with Steam always having game sales, it makes that experience even better. As our lives seem to get busier and busier, devices like the Steam Deck I think could very well play a huge role in the future of gaming. Having a device that can play Cyberpunk or Call of Duty on the go is something I could only dream of when I was younger, and the Steam Deck makes that possible. And with the Asus ROG Ally releasing soon, we can see other companies wanting a share of the handheld gaming market, which is a good thing for competition, and I'm all for it. It'll be interesting to see what the future has in store for handheld gaming PCs like the Steam Deck.